My name is Susan Wegmann. I believe I have met everyone on the call here, but I am the executive director of our extended campus here at SIU Carbondale. And we have developed several 1 hour sessions, although the sessions today will probably take between 30 and 45 minutes. And today's topic is AI, artificial intelligence. And we've titled this AI Goes to College because we want you to be able to think about your job in terms of productivity, in terms of activities you may assign in a class, and in terms of leadership, so that we want you to consider AI in all of those areas. Some of you are probably well aware of this, but here are some terms to start with. Artificial intelligence. This was developed, these definitions were developed by ChatGPT. The first one I asked to be developed as a sixth grade reading level. So you can see that it's like it says it is a super smart computer. And I'm going to mute someone. Okay. Super smart computer can think and learn like a human. It helps us do things faster, like finding information, finding answers, and so on. So artificial intelligence, many forms of AI that can do many kinds of things. A large language model also comes into play because the artificial intelligence has the large language model as its basis. So it's an advanced AI system. And again, ChatGPT wrote these definitions. This was requested to be on a college level. So it uses patterns and contexts to do human-like things, like answering questions, summarizing information, engaging in conversations, and so on. Then GPT, the Chat GPT you may have heard of, people usually just string it all together, Chat GPT. GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. It uses those large language models. It is an AI, and it is based on a chat interface. So when Chat GPT became widely accessible, the chat feature of it was what was really engaging to a lot of folks, because all of a sudden you could chat, you could go back and forth with the computer and get into some things that were, helpful for you. And then generative AI creates new content such as texts, images, music, and so on. And it's used in applications like art generation, maybe writing assistance, chatbots. And so you can see immediately that when we think about artificial intelligence, we think about those applications that are found in many, many walks of life and in many of our degrees that we offer here at SIU. You've heard of email, spam. Well, AI has slop. Obviously, this picture is AI generated. AI is known for really messing up on fingers and toes and hands. Here's some examples here that are kind of creepy. I figured for, Halloween, that'd be fun. And I don't even know what this is. Obviously, these are very, very easy to determine. Yeah, that's got to be AI because it's so bad. Another form of AI, this is one of my favorite ones, and I'm not sure you can hear the music, but you can see this ballerina is having all kinds of things happening. I didn't share my screen so you could see it, but even from this picture, you can see that this is quite a ballerina with 3 legs. And she goes on and on to twirl around and do things that no human can do. So instead of sharing my screen again, I'm just going to move forward. But so AI has slop, and sometimes, and this is my message to you, that anything that AI returns, you need to really be careful with accuracy. This is the interface for ChatGPT, and you can see this bar here is where you put in your question or your prompt, and when you hit the little arrow up here, it will give you back the answer. This is actually ChatGPT 4.0 because we pay as an institution for me to have a subscription to ChatGPT. The free version is getting better and better. It is a 3.5 now, and it is accurate up until, I think they said January of 2023. 4.0 is fall of 2023. So you can see it's still a little bit delayed. And what I mean by that is it uses the internet as its source. So everything that was active and current up until those dates, right now we're looking at about 6-month delay on the first tier of the paid version and about almost a year delay of the free version. And again, the disclaimer, AI has many, many forms. This is just one. This is sort of the low-hanging fruit that we can use pretty readily, especially the free version. Microsoft has an AI called Copilot. Oh, sorry. ChatGPT costs, the first paid level version costs about $20 a month. Microsoft has their Copilot version of an AI. It costs about $30 a month. So we are a Microsoft school, so I feel compelled to say, if you can use Microsoft's product, I recommend it. But ChatGPT is also something that you might want to use because it is free, the first level of version. All right. Let me go on and tell you that daily use, you probably use some of these, but you can prompt your AI to say things like, hey, remind me to call the dentist tomorrow at 3. And I know a lot of us have use of either Alexis or, oh, it just turned on, or Siri, or, and there it goes again. Sorry. Or I'm looking at my phone. Google Home, those kind of things. So that is really good example of daily use of AI. What's on my calendar for today? We also may have smart home automation. I've got an Ecobee. Right now, I could look to tell you what the thermostat reads in my home because I can measure it using my Ecobee. You can also do routines on Alexa or ChatGPT, and looking at things like turn off the living room lights. It can make recommendations for you. If you want a family movie night, notice the family movie night might be a movie that's a few years old. So any level of ChatGPT can give you this information, or you could do Alexa or Google Home or any of those others. New book suggestion, language translation. I like to tell the story. I was in Guatemala this summer and had a relatively minor emergency, and the Google Translate was our saving thing because we typed in what we needed in English. And I have about a 3-year-old version of Spanish, and so my Spanish was not going to get me where I needed to go. So once I typed it in Google Translate, I was able to translate it into Spanish, and then I just held up my phone for the person to read, and thankfully they could read, and they got me what I needed, and we got it very quickly. So you may have used that feature, which is really nice. Health monitoring, I'm sure some of you wear Apple Watch or Fitbits or anything else that connects. So these are all examples of AI that we use daily. In college, we look at productivity, and here are some productivity uses. In fact, I highly recommend some of these. So things like email management and automation. You can set things up to prioritize emails from your different constituents. If you want to prioritize those from your department chair, or your dean, or your boss, or whomever, you can do that. You can also have the AI categorize your emails, and that's a wonderful tool so that you don't miss anything. We've heard of this use most often, I think, is using writing and content generation using ChatGPT. I also, suggested Grammarly. We've been using that for a few years now, Quillbot. But a new tool to me was this summary. And what it does, it very similar to Copilot in Microsoft World. You go to a certain website, and then you ask this summary tool, which is oh gosh, what do you call that on your URL? But it's a link that you can just click, and you ask it to summarize what's on that page. So it's of the TLDR, too long, didn't read in that vein, you don't have to read the entire thing unless you want to. You could just get the summary first. So more productivity uses. We've gone round and round about chatbots. They used to be very, very expensive, so we wouldn't have a lot of use for them in the college realm, but now they're getting a lot more affordable. We also have voice activated assistants, which I just think of my dad, dearly departed dad, who, gosh, 30 years ago said he was waiting for the time when he could just speak to something and it would come on. And, I think he was a visionary, because that has absolutely happened. Research assistants. This was also interesting. ChatGPT is sort of awakened into this idea of, sometimes it's being used in school when the student needs the experience of doing their own research. And so I had the experience the other day. I was doing a lit review for a chapter I have coming out, and I wanted it to just summarize and give me, the top 10 research articles out of the past, year or so on micro-credentialing. And ChatGPT gave me this little message back that said, well, Susan, here's the link to Google Scholar, and you may want to do your own research, basically. I should have saved it. It was really quite funny. I wanted to say, wait a minute, I have a PhD and I did my own research for years. I just wanted you to help me. So I got around it by giving the prompt a slightly different way, and they did it for me. But it is a great use of the tool for any of the AI to help you with looking at the literature that's been done recently. Google Scholar is also a really good tool as well. And again, I will say, please remember and tell your students to remember that you have to vet everything. You have to read every single word, because it absolutely does lie. It will hallucinate. It will make up information. You can think of an AI as sort of this really energetic graduate student who would rather give you false information than not give your information at all and kind of disappoint you in that way. So data collection analysis. I love a new feature I just found out about, and that is you can plop an image of a table into ChatGPT and ask it to turn it into a spreadsheet. And that has revolutionized so many things. So if you find a good image that you would like, or say that you're tinkering around on Power BI and it gives you an image, or you take a quick screenshot of somebody doing a presentation, you can pick that image out, copy it, and paste it into ChatGPT. And again, it will give it to you in a spreadsheet. So it's just fascinating. Here's some more. To-do, you probably use To-do maybe, or Trello, Asana. These are the workflow, project management kind of ideas. Meeting scheduling, we do have Microsoft Office products, and they do have a great tool that you can plug in the areas, the times when you're available, and then you can send it out to a large group and they can find consensus on who's available at the most, which time slot has the most people available for. And then data analysis, decision making. We've been using Power BI as an institution here for a few years, and that's one really good example. And I like to mention D2L because it has its own learning analytics tool built in, and you can speak with our folks across in the CTE for more information about how you can engage this feature of D2L with data analysis. So you can also create your own agent. This, I like to show the example, and I want to brag on my colleagues, Craig Engstrom and Pinckney Benedict, who created this AI University Administration Advisor. We were looking at how to create an AI policy across the campus. And so Craig and Pinckney and I got together and we loaded up basically a blank AI with about 800 or so articles and websites and everything from the Higher Learning Commission, which is our accreditor, and we posted it into this beautiful agent. Now, Pinckney can turn it into an agent that will have, an avatar that goes with it, that will orally speak back to you or whatever. I tend to like to use the text-based one, and so this is the one that I'm demonstrating here. But I just found out about another tool. I think I have it next here. Uh-oh. Sorry, I linked to it, so my screen's going crazy. But another tool is Notebook LM, which is a curated AI agent. And in the past day or so, I've loaded, and so what you do is make your own resources and you plug them into this notebook. And you'll notice along the side here, it is telling you this is my, and at the top, this is my AI notebook. So you would have different subjects set up. And for me, I think one use of this will be when my leaders or my unit team members say, hey, here's a great article on AI, for example, then I can copy and paste that as a source. So right here, what I didn't show you in the screenshot is just below here, you can add a source. Right now, I think I only have, 9 sources available. That's not nearly enough to make any kind of, accurate um, comment about AI. But what I'm showing you is a question I asked it about a good online assignment using AI based on the sources that I provided. And you can see it gave back a few things. It was pretty good. But this is a free tool that you can use. And again, that's Notebook LM. And you can Google that. And you can also share it with your team. And you can set the settings so that it will actually, the AI will perform a function for you by combing the web to find possibilities for AI sources. So I think that's really interesting. It takes this kind of complicated thing of creating your own AI agent, and it really, really makes it a lot easier for a class, for a student. They could set up notebooks for each of their topics they're studying, and then they can plug those sources in. Again, we always have to talk to them about the fact that the AI is only as good as the source. And when the source is really, really good and you've got a lot, so the other AI that I mentioned with Pinckney and Craig, we loaded it up with about 800 sources. You'll notice this so far only has 9. So I want to make that point multiple times that it's only as good as the source that we've given it. In some cases, that's the web. In some cases, that's the curated AI agent that we have made. So those are some examples. And how to get the most out of AI. And this is a discussion I really would love for you to have with your students, because there's some things that you can do, there's things that they can do to make their AI act a lot better. Things like, and this comes from Harvard Information Technology System, but things like being very specific. You have a limit, I believe, about 1,200 characters, if I'm not mistaken, through ChatGPT, for example. So if they can plug in as much detail as possible about a particular area that they're interested in studying, that's going to be a lot better than just asking a real basic question. So another tip is to give it some sort of role. So I usually say, assume that you are an expert in blank. You could also say, act as though or act as if this particular condition is going to be existing. Act as if you're presenting on AI, and then you give it the question that you have. So you tell the output as well. So you can tell it to, a text output, video output, whatever. Oh, and I failed to mention the first tier of ChatGPT that's paid for opens you up to, golly molly, 500 or so different AIs. And these AIs are in video production, graphic production, all kinds of things that you can't even imagine, music and so on. But you tell that AI what kind of format that you want the answer to come into. Use do and don't. And so I love the don't piece, because sometimes there are things that I know that it's going to be tempted to give me back. For example, if I'm looking at international studies, but I don't want to have English as a second language literature. That's my home is the College of Education. So we spend a lot of time thinking about English as a second language, but in some cases, I don't want that body of knowledge, but I do want to know, for example, what's happening in different countries and internationally and so on. So you give it a don't, you limit. You also need to use as many examples as you can fit into there. Few shot prompting is what we call that. And it's more than just giving it no shots or even one shot of an example, but give it a couple examples. So if you can give it a website, the idea that you're interested in, or if you can give it maybe an outline of something that you're, you know, envisioning as your answer, that's always really helpful for it. Consider the tone in the audience. I like to play around with tone a lot. I'll say things like, make it mildly humorous if I'm giving an introduction, for example, of a speaker. Mildly humorous means, and also professional, it's going to give you one or two little things that you may go, huh, you know, it's more clever than it is funny. Now, if you really want something funny, I would not recommend AI. I would recommend the human because it's, to me, AI humor is just not funny. Sorry, AI, if you're listening, but I just don't think it's funny. You also can build on your previous prompts. It is a chat. It's intended to going back and forth. And so you'll see at the bottom, they give you a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or, you know, several different other things that can give it feedback on whether it did the job that you want it to do. I think that's a really interesting thing because we're used to, as human beings, when we chat, we can correct pretty quickly. If we're having a discussion, we can say, no, that's not what I meant. And then the person can listen to what you meant, and then the person can respond back. And so it kind of gives you that feel. You can correct it. You can build on previous examples. And then final tip on this, ask the AI what other information would be important for it to give you a better answer, especially if it doesn't give you a good answer the first time. And so you could say, you know, what holes are missing, or what else do I need to include to make this a really good, whatever it is you're trying to come up with. So those are some tips and tricks. This is modified from the Harvard list. And I'd like to kind of change the topic of discussion here to ethical ideas, because if I get any questions from faculty, it's always about this ethical idea. And it tends to be questions like, how do I keep students from plagiarizing? Or how do I let students know what's okay to use AI for and what's not okay? So this is just meant to be a starting place, a conversation generator. You could evaluate AI as a group or as a class. If you're teaching a face-to-face course or a synchronous course, you may want to go on to ChatGPT together or Copilot together, and you say, you know, this is what I'm looking for, or these are things that you need to watch out for. Acknowledge the elephant in the room. Students know that they can use AI for most of the assignments they get, so acknowledge it, talk about it. I don't subscribe to the head in the sand theory that you just put your head in the sand and it'll go away. AI is not going anywhere. So acknowledge the elephant in the room. Talk to your students about it. And again, give them those parameters. Discuss it, how to create and cite AI contributions. I looked on APA citations. These are the 3 examples that they give at Purdue OWL. A portion of this response was created by ChatGPT, or a portion of this was suggested by Microsoft Copilot. Some of these suggestions were created by ChatGPT. So give them the tools to let them know when they've used the AI. Let them know that you know that they know that you know that they're probably going to use it. Talk about opportunities to use it in the course as well. So it might be that there's a really, really good use case. For example, if your course is heavily laden with definitions, you've probably got the textbook that you want them to use. You probably have some websites, some sources that you want them to use. But what happens at, 1 a.m. when the student really, really wants to study? Maybe they've just come back in for the evening, I don't know, and they have time to study. You're not available for them at that point. Oh, would imagine you're not available, but the AI is. And so train them to use the prompts that will help them study and help them tutor. Again, filling that AI, if you can, generate their own AI with that LMS notebook, or an agent maybe that you create specifically for your class. But the AI will allow them to be repetitive. It'll allow them to kind of, something that might get on our nerves as a human being. The AI can answer the same questions over and over and over until they get it. You can also craft an AI prompt to pause in between questions so that the student answers, and then the AI will reflect on that answer and give it feedback, give the student feedback, whether it's right or wrong or what parts they missed or whatever. I would recommend putting that into your syllabus and allowing students just to copy and paste right from your syllabus into some sort of AI that's going to help them. You can also design assessments to incorporate AI, and we're going to talk about a few of those, what that might look like. And I did want to give a shout out to our Center for Teaching Excellence. Craig has done a good job compiling a whole page on AI resources. You can Google this off of your SIU homepage and the CTE homepage. So here are some ethical issues that I think we need to touch on. AI has been known to have cultural biases. They're not only cultural, they're gender related, sexuality related, and things like, because remember, the basic AI is being fueled by the internet. It's being fueled by, Twitter or X. It's being fueled by even Facebook that's published public. And so there used to be a much bigger problem with this. It's gotten a little better, but here's an example in summer of 2023. So that would have been a little over a year ago. If you put in the prompt for it to generate a picture of a doctor, some of you are reading my mind, what you would get back is an older white male in a lab coat, right? Now, that's a great picture of a doctor that's an older white male, but it's not necessarily the most culturally responsive or the most even gender responsive picture of a doctor. So again, you can create that prompt so it's a little more specific than that. But now if you do that, it's going to give you a little bit more of a broader perspective of what that AI, of what that picture may look like. You also have to watch out for things like assistive technologies and the digital divide. We want to make sure that all of our students have access and that all of our students' external help may work. For example, if you've got students using a screen reader, some of the AIs are terrible with screen readers. And so you may get feedback from a student that says, hey, I can't use ChatGPT, but here are the 4 or 3 that I can use. So would that be acceptable? And we need to really think about that. And I would take that as a learning opportunity for you to think about another kind of AI that you may want to use. We do also need to think about the economic implications. I've mentioned the fact that ChatGPT now has several tiers of paid, and not everyone's going to be able to afford that. And so what I might do is probably limit it to the lowest level that you would say, use the free version. Or you could say that they have to declare or claim or cite which version they're using, in particular ChatGPT. Again, providing all the training so that all the students start out at the same point. That's called equity, and making sure that they're all equitably starting at the same point. So again, talk to them about it. Maybe take 30 minutes out of a class session and spend time on AI. We also need to think about originality and authenticity. And I'm looking at some of you that are working with fields in which creativity is highly, highly sought after, even in School of Education. I mean, I think in every college, there's probably 1 or 2 applications for creativity. So we need to make sure that we are embracing creativity. And sometimes remember, creativity can be so messy at the beginning. It can be so haphazard looking, but sometimes that's the easiest way to tell if it's an AI generated product or not, because it doesn't have that messiness, especially at the beginning. But be careful. Our AI detectors are not good at this point, and we don't want to accuse students of using one when they haven't. And then language barriers, we need to be very careful. I would suggest that AIs are going to be helpful for language learners, but we also need to think about maybe providing alternatives if that's makes sense for your class. Harvard Business Review gave this list of 12 things that cause leaders in AI concern with using leaders in online learning concern. A few of them I'll point out. The black box problem, that is the issue that you never really know what's going to come back. In fact, today for this presentation, I was going to use AI real time, but I really didn't know what was going to come back because the internet is sort of this black box. Now, unless you generate your own agent, then you've limited to the sources that you're interested in using. So that's less of a black box. What's the other one? Let's see. I mentioned hallucinations. Oh, the unknowns, unknown unknowns. That's the principle that we don't know what we don't know. And as a learner, sometimes they won't know what they don't, well, all the time. They won't know that maybe something is inaccurate that the AI has spit out. So that's something that we, again, have to train our students to verify, to make sure that what they're giving you as an assignment, if they've been told to use AI, that it really is true by looking at several different sources, triangulating their data, of course. So I'm going to move right on now, and let's consider talking about the courses that can be created, the activities in the courses. And this is an interesting, what are these called? Flowcharts. So does the assignment address a course competency or essential learning activity objective? Of course, we need to make sure that most of our course assignments do that. If the answer is no, you may want to consider that activity. Even if it's your pet activity that you've done for 49 years, you may want to consider dropping it. You may want to think about it as ungraded, or turn it into a class activity and do it during the day if you're doing a synchronous or face-to-face course. So if the answer is yes, that it does assess a course of competency or an essential learning objective, then can AI complete this assessment and pass? And that's the most interesting question on this flowchart. If it can pass and assess an assessment, you might want to think about, if the answer is yes to that, you might want to think about modifying your assignment so that the answer becomes no. If it cannot pass it, here's what I'm trying to say. If a student can just lift an assignment from your syllabus into ChatGPT and come up with an assignment product that you would grade as an A, really consider at what level, and I'm talking about things like Bloom's taxonomy of learning, and at what level are you asking students to produce assignments? Now, sometimes there's certainly warranted that lower level kind of knowledge basis. Students need to know a definition, or they need to know a certain easy process, right? But most of the time, we want to push our students toward higher levels of thinking in terms of having students evaluate or assess based on a criteria or create something new. So if the answer is that yes, they can complete the assessment and pass just using ChatGPT and there they go, you may want to consider complicating it a bit and making it a bit more higher level thinking. If a student would use AI and it would undermine their ability to learn, and this is the same idea, then you really want to think about either having them demonstrate their knowledge in a different way, or maybe flip your class and have the students do a lot of the extra outside resourcing outside of class, and then in class do those really particular case study kind of assignments, so that you propose a problem or you propose an example and they actually do the assignment in the class and they create it from the class setting. So it is interesting to think about your assessments and your assignments in class. Here are some examples to design for good use of AI. And these came from that website that I shared with you for the CTE. It also came from ChatGPT, and then it also came from other sources that I have. So Socratic discussions, those are often, again, you can't know exactly how a Socratic discussion is going to go. If you know exactly what a student's going to say, then it's not a Socratic discussion, because it allows for a lot of open-ended, a lot of talk and student creativity when they're answering. So open conversations are the same ideas. Maybe something like an example would be discuss the relevant uses of AI in your topic. Something else you may want to consider is look for specificity and context, and in particular with ChatGPT. So we want to limit wide sweeping statements. We want to make sure that students are using really focused statements in some cases so that they're showing you their knowledge. Because if they're using these vague generalizations, you don't really know what they're spouting back. All you know is that they know the concept maybe at a really high level. Also think about unique assignments. Think about those that are based on readings, lectures, videos, and other sources that are maybe only visible or allowable in your class setting. This will really limit their ability to use AI from just a general setting, and you're going to get much more specific answers back to your questions and assignments. And this is that same idea. If you limit them to in-course experiences, for example, if you say using the case study from last week and how we discussed it either online or whatever, build on that. Now discuss this. Or you could say, using all of the things we've talked about in the class so far, what are your answers and how would you answer this question? How would you take it in another step and maybe do that summarization and all that? It's going to be really difficult for them to copy and paste, well, almost impossible to copy and paste everything that they've talked about and everything that you've learned about in a particular class into an AI. But it will ask them to do those things we want them to do, like summarize and create new content and so on. So here is a formative or along the way kind of assignment that students use AI to create an outline of the assignment, and then they submit it after editing. So they're submitting to you the outline first. Then using the outline, the students complete the assignment. They actually do it. They fill in the content from the course. They cite specific articles and resources from the module or modules and their own personal experiences with the content. So I've circled a few things here I want you to think about, but giving them the opportunity to use the AI as an outline. I hate the blank page with the blinking cursor. I mean, if I ever open up a page and I can't think of where to start, I just start typing in ASDF, because I hate that blank page. And I know students feel the same way, that they don't even know where to start. And so giving them this idea of, okay, plug it in ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever, and have it give you an outline. I think that's great. And have them submit that to you just as a safekeeping that okay, they've used it, give it, citation, all that. So this is one example of a formative kind of assessment. Another example is to use it like a tutor. And I mentioned this one before, but here's something that I came up with yesterday, and it came out with a great answer. If you copy and paste it into the ChatGPT, but here's an example of a prompt that you put into your syllabus or assignment, and you have students copy it and paste it right in the AI. Assume you're an expert in Maslow's hierarchy of needs at the college level. Notice I gave it a role, I gave it an age level, I gave it a goal. Ask me questions about each stage and pause after each one until I answer. Evaluate the answer I provide and offer 2 to 3 interactions to talk about any questions on which I'm incorrect. At the end of the process, summarize my answers and provide a score on this rubric, and you fill it with your own rubric related to knowing Maslow's hierarchy. So they copy and paste it into the ChatGPT or whatever AI. And then at the end of the session, they have to copy and paste the entire interaction into a Word document. And then either they submit that, or you have them talk about it in a discussion board post or in a class discussion. And this is a great opportunity for them to talk about the usefulness of AI, whether it was helpful or not. But I love this idea. And again, I tried it out yesterday on ChatGPT, and it was fascinating to think about using it as a tutor and to give me I've used Maslow's hierarchy for years, but I learned some things in this, and I thought it was fascinating that our students could learn as well. Here's what it came out as. I plugged in that that prompt. It said, let's begin with the first stage of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is physiological needs. These are the most basic requirements for human survival, such as food, water. Notice it's tutoring the student along the way. It's not just expecting it to know, the student to know. So then it gave a question. Provide your answer, then I'll give feedback. So I said this, as a student may. Then ChatGPT wrote back to say, you're absolutely right, when students are preoccupied and so on. And then it asked another question, because probably this answer that I gave was really, really a bit basic from what it was expecting. So it gave a follow-up question, and I stopped it at that point, but I thought, this is a fascinating thing. You could also program this into reporting and tutoring with images, tutoring with music, with all kinds of feedback in this particular case. So that was one example. I thought it was great. Again, those were formative. Here's a summative example. This is when at the end of a term, or maybe at the midterm, you might give this kind of assignment. You have the students ask the AI to generate basic definitions. Then they relate the main topic or processes to their own experiences in the field or maybe on a discussion board, and they share those AI generated definitions along the way. Then the students use AI to summarize a lengthy research article about the topic. We want them to understand, when they get in their professional world, they're probably not going to read every single word of a particular research paper, but they may want it to summarize the document. So you have it do that. And then they create their own case study based on that. And giving them those specific things like their own experiences, summarizing this particular thing, making it into a case study. So a case study automatically elevates that to higher levels of thinking, because they have to make sure they're using everything that you've talked about in the class thus far. So this is an assignment that you might create as a summative assignment. And of course, the rubric that you build would have all of these pieces in there. It would talk about the AI definitions they need to share with you. Have that as an attachment to the assignment at the end. They would talk about, the rubric would again, hit all of the pieces, the experiences, sharing the definitions, and so on. So those are 2 or 3 examples of assignments that you could use in your class even tomorrow. And looking at AI, again, acknowledging the elephant in the room, making sure that, students they know that that AI is out there. Provide great examples so they know how to use it. Spend time talking about how AI is changing your field of study. Focus on the process, if at all possible. Use ChatGPT in whatever way you can, or use the AI, but consider reworking it if that's all they have to use. Consider that as a basis and then help them elevate their answer. And discuss effective AI prompt generation. GIGO stands for garbage in, garbage out. That's an old 50s term, really, for computers. Whatever you feed it is the basis of what you're going to get back. If you give it just a little bit, it's not going to give you the best answer. If you can give it things like a role and a reading level, maybe, or the competence level that you want, and then you give it a couple examples, you're going to get a much better answer back. So here's a question that I asked it. What should I teach college professors about AI? I thought you'd appreciate that. List 10 items that will impact their own teaching. So if you are tasked with giving a presentation to maybe your faculty peers, this is something that you could do. And here are 10 impactful AI related topics that could enhance, and so on. I won't go through all of these, but I thought it was interesting. It's very metacognitive in its answers. It knows that it's an AI, it acknowledges that it's an AI, and it thinks about being an AI. I use some of these, by the way. All right, so this was the session on Saluki, the AI Goes to College. I did want to give a quick plug about upcoming sessions. This is one of 3 that we have. We're going to be talking next on November 12th at 9 o'clock about regular and substantive interaction. The U.S. Department of Education is coming down with several changes to this field. You're going to see some changes in the way that we have to deliver online courses, for example. And then on December 4th, I thought it would be a really opportune time to think about preparing your online course for the next term and helping us as faculty members get ready and make sure that we're in the right position to get ready.